afternoon and good afternoon and welcome to this meeting of the Joint Regional Transport Committee. I'll ask Dwayne to open with a karakia, please.
Kia tau mai te maramatanga, kia tau mai te rangamarie, kia tau mai te kaha, me te aroha, mō tēnei kaupapa, huie, kai kia. Let's be grounded in clarity, let's be peaceful, let's be strong and loving at this issue, bind together, and so it is. Go.
Thank you. So welcome everyone to this meeting. No members on Zoom at this stage. The meeting is being recorded and will be available on Council's YouTube channel and within a few days. Microphones muted in this speaking and hands up for questions and through the chair, please. The location of the toilets is out to the left and the fire exit is out through the main doors and assemble at the rear of Amarillo's. And the media are present. Max is here and I thought Catherine, she may be online and coming. So with that, do we have any apologies? We have one from Mayor Smith. Any others? No. Councillor Dowling, you'll move. Seconded Councillor O'Neill. Stevens, all those in favour will say aye. Against, the resolution is carried. Thank you. Declarations of interest. Appears to be none. Public forum, no registered speakers. Confirmation of minutes of the joint Nelson Tasman Regional Transport Committee held on Friday the 5th of May 2023 be confirmed as a true and correct record of the meeting. Would someone like to move that? Please move Councillor O'Neill Stevens. Seconded Councillor Dowler. All those in favour will say aye. Against, the resolution is carried. And the confidential minutes of the joint Nelson Tasman Regional Transport held on Friday the 5th of May 2023 be confirmed as a true and correct record of the meeting. All those in favour. We need that. That's a separate resolution. Yeah. Move Councillor Dowler. Seconded Councillor O'Neill Stevens. All those in favour will say aye. Against, carried. We'll move to presentations. We'll start with you, Emma, Waka Kotahi, and it is on LG Hub. I think it's right at the start. Memory. So just when you're ready, welcome Emma, and when you're ready. I think Helade's bringing the little clicker.
Oh, these are red lights, but that's not getting any light. The same as my talk. Kotahi. So as usual, I will start off with our national overview, and I'm delighted to say I got some good pictures this morning, so I can stop putting Wellington on the front slide and put some pictures from this wonderful region, so that'll be good. So it's just starting with our current National Land Transport Program. We're now into the final year of the 3-year program, and we're just asking for all of our road control authorities to have a look at your current funding forecasts and be, you know, really realistic and in terms of what you can't complete, and if there are things in there that you're not going to get to, that we can then push those through, and if other people have got activities they can do, it means we maximise the use of that money within the current period. And your investment advisors will assist you with this. And equally, if there are things that you can actually push on and get delivered, we really encourage you to do that, because otherwise they roll into the next NLTP and it reduces the amount of activities we can do in the next NLTP. So that's just a small plea from us. And looking forward, we're awaiting the release of the draft government policy statement on land transport. We are anticipating that that is imminent, and then that will give some clear signals about where the indicative priorities will lie. So it's really important that we, as a Regional Transport Committee, but also each of you as road controlling authorities, continue to work on those RLTPs and thinking about your longer term priorities, stepping through what are the priorities for the next 3 years. It may change if there are changes in the GPS, obviously, because that will guide you as to where the priorities will lie. But it is still important that we keep that work going as much as possible. We keep working on as the timeline has previously been identified, and we're also continuing to work on our state highway investment proposal. Tuaki Tumaya is our regulatory strategy, which has just been released as a refreshed strategy. Now, this is the part of our business that the public probably has a significant amount of interaction with, but often doesn't really think about, which is the licensing of people and vehicles to be on the road and all the other rules and regulations that sit alongside that. And we are working really carefully to ensure that we are operating as a good regulator, and that we are also looking at how to fund that in a sustainable way and ensure that where people are repeatedly breaching the rules and responsibilities that they have, that we take action in light of that. We also, in the way that we are developing this, we've worked very closely to build into our Māori principles, taking a really long-term view as a guardian of the system and focusing on harm reduction. So really important part of the work that we do, and we'll probably have more conversations about this over time because it feeds through to improvements we're making to driver licensing and other activities around commercial vehicle safety that are also being developed and be rolled out over the next NLTP. Any questions on the national update?
Last one, just in relation to, you talked about driver licensing changes. Is that anything substantial or just treatment?
So what we've been looking at for some time now is how do we improve the access to the driver licensing system and improve the ability of people to move through the driver licensing system. So we've been piloting some very intensive programs in Tairāwhiti and Te Takarau with partners, with police, with iwi authorities, with community groups and community providers. And what we've seen is that we've been able to get really good engagement and then successful pass rates. And that means that particularly often these are young people, either young people or never licensed drivers. And it then gives them a pathway to employment and reduces the risk of them getting into an offending cycle. And so we've seen really good success, and now we're looking at how we can roll that out. We've appointed a number of regional driver licensing and people who will work to support those driver licensing programs in each region. And then we'll be working to identify where and how we can do that and just lift the rates. Alongside that, we look at, can we bring in more driver testing routes in regions so that makes it more accessible. And for example, in Upper Hutt, we worked with the mayor there, and he managed to locate some people who wanted to be testers, because the testers is one of the key things we need that often reduces the number of slots available for people to take their licence. And so we just tailor that to what the challenges are in a particular region. So we'll be doing some more work across the country in the next year on that.
Excellent, thank you. Any further questions relating to the national update? All right, it looks like we're on to the regional update. Emma.
Okay, so pretty brief update, and there's lots of things happening obviously, but So as you'll be aware, for the state highways, we have been going through an interim speed management plan, and that plan has been through all of its preparation steps and is now in the certification process. So it goes to the Speed Management Committee, and once the Speed Management Committee has considered the plan, it will then go through to the Director of Land Transport for certification. And we're expecting that to happen probably around October, November of this year. So first time, so the Speed Management Committee and the process of finally approving or certifying the plan is new. So this is the very first time we've done it. So it's probably taking a little longer than we would expect normally. And that's primarily around schools, marae, and the sites that we've previously discussed. State Highway 6 vegetation control. So we've been working with the Nelson City Council on that, and still continuing to work through the options. And now that we've had a few frosts, the growth might slow down. So there's been, I know they were out not too long ago mowing all of those sites, and they hopefully will slow down now for a few months. This is an issue we've got really around the country, and we're really having to think carefully about what the best options are. So we're just stepping through that quite carefully at this stage. We've completed the shoulder widening through the Milnthorpe curves between Parapara and Collingwood, and that's just that part of that program of incremental improvements and shoulder widening. And we're also working through with emergency response services and councils the State Highway 6 Urban Corridor Disruption Response Plan, which is really how we manage and respond to disruption, and this is for unplanned events. So really trying to think what's the best way to manage those, and how do we really quickly get information out to the public, but also have a plan that everyone's aware of and agreed to, and we know how to manage it right through the corridor. State Highway 6 Whakatū Drive shared path upgrade. So we've been through a process of engagement with everyone who's been interested in terms of cyclist walkers and Te Atiawa, and we've pulled all that work together, and we're now looking at, because we had the alternatives around whether we put raised deck type treatments there, and they do appear to be to meet everyone's needs. So now we're just working through the actual designs around that and making sure that that will be a sustainable option. And because we only have funding to do a section, it means we can essentially put in place the changed design, and then it'll give us a bit of time to see how well it works, and then we'll keep applying for more funding as we go.
Yeah, just a situation we're dealing with in our town at the moment. So we've been told that we're not allowed to do anything that is going to be put in where the sea level rise will be 1.5 meters, which is quite serious as far as we're concerned over there. So taking from that, I assume that you guys would have to do the same. So that could mean that your decking is going to be 1.5 meters higher than the road, maybe. Or your...
I don't think it would be that high above. Wouldn't be that high above the road, but that's exactly what they're looking at in the design now. I haven't seen the design. Sure. They're actually looking to make sure that the actual the design of this, though, is actually designed so that it has the least impact on that coastal margin. Yep. So, and then obviously the height's critical to make sure that it's taking it.
Yeah, we've been told nothing within that zone, allowing for the storm surge. So yeah, it's certainly locked our town up.
Okay. Then we've got State Highway 60. Oh, this is the variation that's being considered. The work to do the final designs for medium barrier through the Ruby Bay bypass section of State Highway 60. And then ATP, audio tactile profile, safety line marking. And so we had the machine up here in the last 2 months and laying that, which is quite, we have one machine in the South Island, so we have to book it in and get all the work done across the region, but it's makes a huge difference and we see quite significant safety benefits. So that's really good to get that out across the network. And speaking of maintenance work across the network, this is last year's summer program, just an update for you. We've, despite the weather events and the work that was needed to repair State Highway 6 over the whangamais and that taking pretty much all the resource in the region, we actually managed to do, I think, about 97% of the programmed work in the summer maintenance season. So it was a huge effort by the teams. And so you see there the chip sealing, asphalt rehabs. Rehabs are when they dig out right down below the pavement surface and redo it. Drainage renewals and the ATP that I mentioned, and then the work on Della's Bluff, the whangamua recovery, which has won 2 awards, which is great, and the Birds Hill slope stabilisation. Just a comment on this. We've been doing quite a bit of work internally around looking at the state of the network across the country. And I think you'll see when we get to our program for next year, quite a significant increase in our maintenance program, and our team's taking a 10-year look across the maintenance program for the country and looking to grow the investment overall in the maintenance of the existing asset. And as part of that, recognising the need to grow also the workforce and the plant and equipment to support that increased investment over time. So that is something that we're looking at quite closely right across the country. And for anyone who attended the briefing that Nicole Rosie led on Thursday, there was a presentation there that talked about whether, for example, on some sites that were really badly impacted by rain and other things, we've got these sites right across the country, mainly in the North Island, that are very, very fragile and have really detailed management plans in place now to get through winter, and will be prioritised for the first wave of works in the summer as soon as we get some warm, dry weather. South Island's in much better condition. There's mainly an area in North Canterbury there that we're looking at. So that's going to be something that we will probably talk about more at the next RTC when we have the detailed summer program ahead of us. Absolutely.
Yeah, just our Ruby Bay bypass, I suppose.
Yeah.
It was fully resealed last year when you had everything shut down. We've got about 7 areas of slumping happening where it's been resealed and everything. So how often do they do road checks on that road for that slumping time?
I'd have to ask the team. They're pretty regular out there doing road condition checks, but I can certainly follow that one up.
Yeah, well, there's 3 bad areas and 4 areas you can see are starting to happen. Obviously, where the logging trucks are tracking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Emma, thanks for your report. I'd like some more commentary on this State Highway 6 Whangamua recovery. Has won 2 engineering awards. Who were the contractors? Was there a number of contractors or the engineers involved? Who are we congratulating here?
I'd have to go back and look at the specific details. I can get that for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was recognised, obviously with really tight time constraints, and they had to come up with some quite innovative designs that could be built within that 7-week closure. And the use of micropiles and all the different technologies that they included in those to enable it to happen. So I can get you the details on each of the
You
awards.
say it's a good news story, and the public were onto it too. They were
Mm.
pretty impressed with the speed at which it was done and the quality of the work that was done. So it's fitting that it's been recognised in this way. Can I go back with a second question? And I'm going right back to the beginning of what Emma started talking about, was the speed management plan,
Mhm.
October, November this year. And is this the one that passes the authority over to local councils to control speed limits past schools? Is this the one for that?
No, well, so the interim speed management plan is just relating to the state highways.
Yeah.
And so under the new speed management rule, which has already been passed, there's a new process for all speed changes. So we at Kotahi's Road Control Authority for State Highways did an interim speed management plan for some of our changes. And then we're doing a full speed management plan, which is for all our future plan changes, and that will be up for consultation early next year. But councils are going through that speed management plan process at the moment and across the country. Under the rule, for example, there's expectations around lowering speeds around schools,
Yes.
for example, and making other changes to ensure that overall that speeds are set in a consistent and recognisable way across the network. And that's councils are working through that, and that will then go through essentially a speed management plan process as well.
Can I just have a follow up on that, Mr. Chair? What time frame is it? Because I'm quite anxious about seeing this come to fruition.
So council's timeframes, they're working through it now, so they have to be submitted by March at the latest, and then they'll be certified by July.
Next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Just Brian can respond further there.
Yeah, through the chair, I believe our drafts have to be promulgated by the 4th of October. Our speed management plans, and the process concluded by sometime in March, as Emma has indicated. And we have a workshop on our joint speed management plan at 2:30, I think, today.
Thank you for that. I'm particularly concerned about Auckland Point School. In fact, it's so close to, say, Highway 6, and it hasn't got a lower speed limit there. So this will facilitate that, won't it?
So the access isn't on State Highway 6, and so there's always a balance between there'll be potentially, and most of the access won't come from children walking along State Highway 6, for example. Therefore, that probably wouldn't have been brought into the plan, but it can be considered in the council plan for the local roads.
Right. Thank you.
Which school were you referring to?
Auckland Point.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Butler.
Here we go. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just in relation to to state highways and the coordination between our speed management plan and the state highway speed management plan, and in rural areas where the state highway is actually really the major road, then has there been any thought as to how we're going to coordinate those two, because we could have some inconsistencies in rural areas between, I'm thinking about Golden Bay and west of Tākaka, which is 100k now. But if all our the rest of the council roads get reduced to 80, but that stays at 100, it is an inconsistency. How we go?
Yeah, so the speed management plan sets out the intent that you would have consistent treatment of similar roads, and that's driven off the classification of roads under the I'm trying to remember the acronym, under what the role and function of that road is. And so, but the speed management plan gives everyone time to make those changes. And on the state highway network, we've been directed by the government to focus on the top 1% of deaths and serious injuries. So the roads where we see the top 1% for those speed changes, unless there is strong community desire for changes to take place, in which case if communities advocate for safer speeds on sections of state highway, then we can look at that as well. In terms of schools, we do work with the school, obviously, and also generally with the local councils on what our proposals are. I can't tell you exactly what it would be on those sections, but I can certainly find out. So ultimately what you want is a system that will be consistent. So if you're travelling along a road, you can tell by its look and feel, this road would be 100 k's, this road would be 80 k's, and this road would be 50 k's or whatever. So you do want roads to be self-explaining to a certain extent, but to get to that will take a number of years. And so that's one of the things that we do have to take into account.
Right, okay. So there isn't really a system of coordination between the two projects?
The certification process does do that. So the certification process looks across state highway, local roads, and looks between different road controlling authorities. So you don't have a road that's sort of 80k in one council region and then you cross an invisible line that changes to 100. You couldn't have that happen. So
that's my concern.
Yeah. So those things are certainly part of what is considered, and to make sure that those things taken into account. And where a road controlling authority chooses not to implement what's called the safe and appropriate speed, they need to make a case for that. They can still do that, but they just need to demonstrate they've made a case for that.
Thank you.
Cliff stabilisation and river works. You've got the river works is ongoing. Is that ongoing to the project's complete or ongoing for because of those big rivers you never really know?
So there was a section of the project that needed further work on the riverbank side, and then I think the team's also identified some other areas of where we need to probably do some more resilience work, and so that will be ongoing as well, because the events that we had through this calendar year in particular, but also last year in the top of the south, have highlighted just how important that proactive resilience work is. So we're looking out for that.
Thank you. No, that's really good to hear. Been a little bit of an ongoing project, that one, but challenging environment there, so all good. Nothing further on your report then, or no further questions? I think we can move on to the next item. Thank you, Emma. For the next items, the proposed regional land transport plan changes. Jane and Dwayne. And Drew, by the look of it.
I don't need that one. No, mine's relatively short part. So we're seeking today the RTZ's recommendation to the Joint Committee for Nelson and Tasman to vary the RLTP. So without the variations, projects can't be considered for funding. So Waka Kotahi have approached us to ask us to vary the RLTP in two ways. They've got a project for the State Highway 60 between Harley Road and Mapua Drive for a median barrier. And the second project alongside that is to look at widening and safety improvements from Mapua Drive to Mazies Road. And then the third part is Nelson City Council's new bus interchange. So they're seeking an increase in the funding.
Right. So Emma and Drew can talk to the specifics of those projects, if you'd like.
And I also have Anthony Cameron online on the Zoom connection. So he can add, I'll crack onto it, but he can add if there's any technical questions that go beyond my area of competence, he can help us.
Welcome, Tony. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So as you'll be aware with the Ruby Bay bypass section, when we did the reseals and the work last year, we painted a wide median barrier there. And part of the intent of that was to enable us in future to put a median barrier through there. And median barriers are a fantastic tool for improving safety through reducing head-on crashes in particular, and also rural runoff crashes, which we see often in rural areas, because they actually protect you both from head-on crashes and runoff where vehicles go across and run off the other side of the road. So they really do create a great safety benefit. And so the first part of this was to vary the RLTP, as we now have the ability to get in there this summer season and put that median barrier in, which would be fantastic safety improvement. And there's one section of that corridor that will need a bit of additional work because it doesn't have the wide median barrier already in place. And we just need to make sure we've got the right width for the median barrier. That section is also relatively straightforward in that we don't have a whole lot of private driveways, access ways or intersections on it. So again, lends itself very well to that treatment. Where we do have access ways into the, it's mainly into forestry land on the side there, we'll have a break in the median barrier to allow that access to continue. Any questions on that section?
Councillor Dowler.
If we said we keep the road at 80, put the speed limit down to 80k, could we spend $3 million somewhere else?
Not needed.
Being silly, but yeah. Just, I don't know whether it's been considered, but you've got when you come from the Motueka end, you've got the first passing lane going up there, which is used very well, especially when the logging trucks and the fruit trucks are full on there for the time. Then you go over the bit of a brow, and then you've got quite a long straight with the passing lane on the other side. At present, it's only got the yellow line on one side, or used to have. And if you come up a couple of trucks that are still only struggling up there at 70k or whatever, you can actually indicate, flick over and right past. So the wire barrier is going to take that out from happening. So is there any chance that in the future that could become a second passing lane? Because that's probably the longest straight when you've got a 50 or 60 ton logging truck hauling its backside up there, and you end up with 20 cars behind you, and some people are starting to do stupid things even now to get past them. Just a comment, that's all. Just a
Yeah, and certainly we can certainly look at that in future, and it does depend very much on the sort of volumes that would make that a viable thing. What may be more realistic is to look at whether a slow vehicle lane would enable that to occur safely. So, you know, and most of the truckies are pretty good at using those and letting people pass, but we can certainly look at that for that section.
just we've got such an immense amount of logging happening over there at the moment. The fruit season's coming to an end, sort of thing. But I noticed even coming over here today, I got stuck behind two trucks. One didn't have enough ground to pass the other.
Yeah. The second project is again being brought forward in our planning because we have maintenance activities planned, and we like to try and use all of our resources as efficiently as possible. And this section is much more complex. So this is the Maisie Road to Mapua Drive. We have a lot more turning movements, we have a lot more driveways, and it's just generally a bit more of a complex environment. So there, what we want to do is look at doing some widening, implementing a wide centre line. Now it could in future mean that there's some sections where we might put safety barrier, but equally, the wide centre line provides for some good safety wins as well. And then also look at areas where we might upgrade side barrier to improve that safety. In order to do that, obviously, we're going to need to engage with the community and talk to people and have some more active engagement to ensure that we've got a good understanding of how people are using that section of road, and also to think about where we might need, for example, right turning bays to provide that additional safety for vehicles that are turning. So that one is not as far advanced, obviously, as the other section, but also a really good opportunity for us to maximise the use of our resources while we're already in there to do that maintenance work. Tony, have I missed anything?
No, you're correct there, Emma. The main purpose of seeking the ROTP variation for that section is just the opportunity to combine works while the knocker out on site, be it minor widening or potentially looking at some additional right turn bays for the moment, but very much minimising disruption as much as we can when we're doing work.
Just a question from yourself, Emma, around the funding. So 6 million there, is that being reallocated from somewhere else, or how do we come to have that much money to spend on that section of road?
So certainly we've had, obviously with some of the issues up north, we've had some of our safety funding. So this is funding for specifically for safety improvements that we're not able to complete because we're rebuilding roads, to be honest. And so that work has been, so up in the North Island, the big energy and focus is on emergency reinstatement and repair. So that means that we have safety funding available, and where we have sections of the road that we know could benefit from that investment, we just bring them forward in the program.
Thank you. Any other questions? Those? Are you covering off the bus interchange, or is that?
No.
Drew, that looks like it's you.
That's true. Through the chair, yes, I'm here to talk about the bus interchange at Miller's-Acre. So back in 2020, consultants for the council undertook an investigation into the right location to construct a bus interchange for the new e-bus services that have already been launched. That process determined that Miller's-Acre was the correct location. It offered the best, on balance, range of different aspects that we saw as being critical for making a successful interchange in the Nelson City Centre area. Council included a project, a low cost, low risk project to construct the interchange. Since then, we've had a new council come on board. Costs have gone up through inflation, and also we understand a little bit more about what's involved in an interchange. All those combined has meant that the cost of the project is likely to go over what's feasible in a low cost, low risk project, and so it's going to be higher than that. We think we are yet to determine the cost for it, but it will be less than $5 million. And so we are asking for a variation in the regional land transport plan to include the changes to the city centre interchange at Miller's-Acre to be able to undertake the design work, because it's now jumped from a low cost, low risk project to a significant project. We are working through the business case at the moment, and when we've undertaken that, we'll have a better idea of what the actual cost will be. But as I said, we believe it to be less than $5 million, hence the inclusion of it in the regional land transport plan. We are also wanting to include it so that we can actually seek co-funding for the design aspect of it from Waka Kotahi. More than happy to answer any questions around that.
Thank you. Councillor Courtney.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks for that. Should I say thanks for that? I suppose. Thank you. Look, my mind tells me that it's 3 million. So did I read somewhere 3 million? You're just quoting 5 there.
Through the chair, the 3 million was probably in anticipation that a low cost, low risk project is up to 2 million, and we're saying maybe up to 5, the difference being 3 million.
I see. Good, thanks for that.
Councillor Hodgson.
Thanks, Drew. Just in terms of prioritization of our infrastructure projects, when I look at the improvements that we've made to the Bridge Street side, it appears just on at first observation to be quite functional for the service as it stands. What level of prioritization do you think there is for this upgrade to move to the Millers Acre site versus other improvements to our public transport system over the next 2 or 3 years?
So through the chair, it's mostly based around the site that's on Bridge Street at the moment serves what we're doing at the moment and serves it well. Through the regional public transport plan, we've got planned improvements to add additional capacity to the entire network. When we're doing those capacity improvements, we'll need a bigger site. We need more bus space. The location on Bridge Street only takes 4 buses at any one time. The Millers Acre site will take at least 6 buses. And also we're anticipating taking into account what we heard with councillor wishes of being able to take intercity and interregional buses as well as part of the new facility. In addition, we also have a project that council has undertaken. It's called the IAF Bridge Street project. And given the current Bridge Street location, the buses exit onto Bridge Street itself, it would be out of step to have buses going up and down a linear park that we're trying to create.
Thank you. Councillor Courtney again.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. Drew, what sort of time frame are we looking at here for these stages? You're drawing up a plan, are you now? That's the next step, isn't it?
So the step that we're currently working through at the moment is the business case. So we're working through the business case to apply for funding through Waka Kotahi, and we will be applying for funding for the detailed design this financial year. We have already undertaken a rough concept sketch to be able to get an understanding of what it might look like. And obviously we have gone through the process of acquiring some additional land next door to the Millers Acre site. So we had to have a rough concept to be able to determine whether that was applicable or not to the project.
Right, thank you.
From myself, and there's no other correct, Drew, just in relation to the cost of the bus interchange, the 5 million, how much are you approaching Waka Kotahi for, and how likely is it that they will fund it? And if they don't, what's the plan B?
So at the moment we're asking for we're asking for a variation of the RLTP up to $5 million. We're trying to determine the cost of it at the moment through the business case process that we're going through. Just like any other project, we would be asking Waka Kotahi for the normal FAR rate, which is 51%. In this financial year, we're only anticipating that we'll do the design work or the pre-implementation work, and construction wouldn't be till next financial year and beyond. And in that case, we would include the construction element of the project in Nelson's long-term plan, and also the new LTP. In terms of Waka Kotahi's ability to fund it, that's really more a question for Waka Kotahi. Our understanding is that many of the funding pools for the different activities is quite well used, or quite used quite well. Other than there might be some headroom in the public transport infrastructure. If indeed Waka Kotahi doesn't have the capacity to fund it, council will have to determine whether we want to fund the design element of it by itself in order to continue on the timeline that we're working through at the moment.
Emma, would you like to comment?
I can't really add anything. That was a good reflection that the investment advisors at Waka Kotahi will have a better idea of, I wouldn't know what's in the pipeline for each activity class. But if they provide an indication that there's the potential, then that's, once the application goes in, they'll be able to assess it. And obviously we know that, to get good uptake, we need good facilities and we need good facilities for drivers as well. So I think there's, it's a good, it's important to make sure that those projects get included and put through, and then, you're in the pipeline for funding.
Thank you. Any further questions? Right, is someone of a mind to move the resolutions? Councillor O'Neill-Stevens, do we have a seconder? Councillor Courtney. Any further discussion, debate? Just before I put that, I guess question for you, Drew. Obviously the bus interchange, that's could well be over a couple of years. Are we committing anyone to beyond the 2023-24 year, or just wondering how that's going to work in practice?
In practice, the new RLTP will determine what goes beyond this financial year. We're only making the modification now because we want to bring the design element of it into this financial year.
Right.
If we, as I said previously, if Waka Kotahi doesn't have the funding for us to progress the design element of it, we might just push it through to next financial year and have it as part of council's long-term plan and the new regional land transport plan.
So we'll get another opportunity to reconsider it.
That's great.
Excellent.
If I just underscore the first slide of my presentation, that's why we're really asking all councils to look at what they're doing, because if another council is working on some PT infrastructure that they're not going to get completed, then that would free up those funds. And so that's why this year becomes really, really critical for that.
Thank you. Councillor O'Neill-Stevens, do you need a right of reply or want a right of reply?
I don't need one. I'll just say I think these are all those safety improvement projects are well needed, and glad to see Waka Kotahi prioritising them, and that the bus hub is going to be really cool, and we're going to get it done as promptly as possible, I'm sure, and just that it fits into that wider picture of improving not just the services, but all of the infrastructure that surrounds them, the bus stops, and actually providing a safe, secure place for people to interchange between their buses, but also linking up to those non-council funded regional services, and providing that wider picture for real alternatives to private motor vehicle use.
Excellent, thank you. I'll now put the resolution. All those in favour will say aye. Against? Resolution is carried. Thank you. Now we'll move on to public transport. Jane and Drew, you may as well stay there. Who's leading? Drew.
Through the chair, yes, this is an update report on public transport. The report talks about what's happened on the in-bus services. They're dare I say it, the old services. It doesn't really talk to what's happened on the e-bus services, simply because at the time of writing, the e-bus services hadn't launched. However, in saying that, I'm happy to give you a verbal update on that. It also talks about, the report talks to the some changes that we'd like to make, and we have already made. One of them being continuing the half price fares through the month of July, that we got an indication from this RTC that they wanted to see continue on. Also that that the changes that central government have made around half price fares for children, free fares for children, half price fares for youth, and half price fares for community service card holders be adopted as well. And the last part of it is the guidelines, the advertising guidelines. We have a couple of changes that we wanted to make to that. We've now got SBL as our public transport contract services holder, as we have worked through the reality of that, there's a couple of areas in the advertising guidelines that we wanted to make a number of tweaks to clarify the guidelines, to make it easier to understand. So more than happy to talk to those as well. Happy to take questions.
Any questions for Drew or Jane? Councillor Butler.
Just in relation to the advertising, what's the rationale for the change to the policy about alcohol? Because it's kind of weakened it quite a lot.
So through the chair, we had lumped alcohol with tobacco in the previous iteration of it. So we have moved alcohol out as a standalone item. One of the reasons we have just tweaked that a little bit is because council has its own functions, including the wine and beer festival, that would like to be able to advertise on the back of buses under the 10% of advertising that council can undertake. But under the way it was written, we couldn't do that.
Okay, so we just would have to trust that it wouldn't open up to other perhaps undesirable alcohol advertising.
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, it still has to follow the rules around alcohol advertising. That's in the advertising standards practice or code of practice. But it just allowed us to be able to do some of the functions that council undertakes that we want to put forward to the community, like, as I say, the cider festival, the wine and beer festival, and those types of activities.
See it, have some confidence that it's going to be restricted to those events or similar.
Through the chair, in practice at the moment, it is really restricted to the events that councils do run.
Is there wording to that effect?
Through the chair, no, we don't specifically say it's only council, but if that's an adjustment that this committee wants to make, we can make that change.
Yeah. So in the changes in the policy, it says promotes it's not appropriate to promote unsafe or irresponsible consumption of alcohol, which leaves it open to promote what would be considered to be safe consumption of alcohol. And it could be argued that there is no safe consumption of alcohol. I mean, Jane, you probably maybe got a comment on that from your public health work. What do you think?
Jane, she's putting you on the spot there a little bit.
Some alcohol advocates would definitely state that there may be no safe level of alcohol consumption. That's correct. Yeah.
Alcohol in pregnancy is not safe. So, I mean, yeah, I just think we need to discuss it and, so, know that we have actually discussed it and that there will be some stricter controls than would be indicated in that line. Yeah.
Through the chair, I guess one of there's possibly no perfect confidence we can give you at this point, but what we can always do is, if a problem manifests, come back to the committee and seek revisions to the guidelines. If there's a level of, if it goes beyond what Drew has signalled in terms of what's intended by the change to something more, and we as staff felt that when push comes to shove, they couldn't actually push back, we can come back.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, I guess the other way to look at it is you could in some ways argue that they're promoting an event's not necessarily promoting alcohol, but it's probably hard to argue that when it's called the cider festival. Yeah, so there's some challenges there. Councillor Courtney.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Drew, can you just reaffirm for me, please, that because I'm getting a lot of communication from the community about this, that the contractor that we've employed, that got the contract to run the bus service, they actually purchased the fleet, the 17 e-buses. That's correct, not council?
Yeah, so through the chair, the contract that we have undertaken is that the contractor supplies all the buses. So in this situation, yes, they have indeed purchased and supplied for the use of this contract, the 17 electric buses.
I just wanted to clarify that again. Thank you.
Right, any further comments? So do we have a resolution? Elaine, or which that covers, from memory, the guidelines, doesn't it, at the bottom, yes. I guess, councillor Butler, if you wanted to amend it, you'd have to change 7. Or how strongly are you want to pursue it?
I'm satisfied with Dwayne's explanation that it would be open for it to be changed if staff felt that they were coming under a lot of pressure to say advertise by the Hop Federation or something like that. Yeah, and it could be changed. I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Right, so is someone happy to move those proposed resolutions on the screen? Councillor Dowler, do we have a seconder? Emma. Any further discussion, debate? If not, I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Resolution is carried. Thank you. Do we have anything further? Yeah. Yeah, so so that brings moved Councillor O'Neill Stevens that we move into committee. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Dowler, all those in favour will say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So 5 minutes, Elaine? Yeah, 5 minute break.